is something bad. Yeah. On the contrary, he classified, the disciplines of philosophy. And in order to show you where the problem comes from, actually, as far as philosophy is concerned. So, of course, when you're talking about philosophy and when you read the books at a time, things that you find is, mathematics and logic and, of course, science, uh, yeah, and ethics and politics. This is what you find when you read the books of the philosophers at that time. Yeah, of course, talking about philosophy, there are a few points that we should make here. Um, yeah, talking about philosophy, there are a few points that we should make here. First point, Imam al-Ghazali, having elaborated on al-Kalam and Islamic theologians and praised also Islamic theology, he found the need you know, to delve into philosophy because he said that philosophy is one of the approach. So that is to say that Imam al-Ghazali was not unfazed by philosophy, So he delved into it and he studied it very thoroughly. And he came up with, this, categorizing the philosophers in general and their methodologies into three. The first one is Dahriyun, Tabi'iyun, wal-Ilahiyun. Dahriyun simply, you know, would say atheist, those who believe that, the world exists by itself, it's, by coincidence, and that there is no bila sone, so bila sone and without creator. So, uh, so if you look at the philosophers in general, their methodology and all this, you will find these three main categories: the Dahriyun, the Tabi'iyun, the naturalist. The naturalist, according to Imam al-Ghazali, is, the scientists, scientists, general, and al-Ilahiyun. Ilahiyun are the metaphysicists, So philosophy is about, for him, you have Dahriyun, philosophy is, you find atheism in it and scientism in it, and Ilahiyun, it is metaphysics. Yeah. So, and then he started talking about the Dahriyun, where he said that the Dahriyun, if you look at them, they should be classified as Zanadiqa in the end. Zanadiqa literally meaning, kuffar, because atheists, does not believe that God exists, which means, of course, there is no creator. It's all coincidence. It's all there by coincidence and using science to explain, nature. So, which is, absurd, according to Imam Ghazali. And وَهَؤُلَاءِ هُمُ الزَّنَادِقَةُ. So the Dahriyun. So the Tabi'iyun, the naturalists, Imam al-Ghazali, treated them also as, and the naturalists are literally the scientists, the biologists, to put it in that way, biologists. So he said that biologists, scientists in general, also can, also have some sort of zandaqa because, at first they believe that, in the end, bottom line, that, you know, uh, yeah, they believe that some of them believe that there is God. But the problem with some of the scientists is that, or most of them, that God is not the one that interfering in the affairs of the world. God himself has created some laws, and these are the laws that are making everything work, mechanically. So for them, they believe in scientism, in science itself, and the ability of science to manage the affairs of the world and so forth. And therefore, uh, you know, putting God into abeyance, into rest. So this is subhanallah, some sort of kufr. Of course, Imam Ghazali talking about that. So these are the three main categories as far as the philosophers, I mean, path and ways are concerned, the theories are concerned. These are three. You have the Dahriyun meaning the atheists, and you have the scientists. And in the end, you have the metaphysics. Yeah. And the focus by Imam al-Ghazali were on metaphysics because this is where the problem is really magnificent, put it that way. And therefore, in order to understand that, he said asnaf al-falsafa, so dividing it like a subcategories according to the branches of knowledge into what, yeah. So a sinful thani, so he talked about the sinful thani, which is tabi'iyun, and then al-ilahiyun. So started talking about the ilahiyun by focusing mainly on Aristotle, a sinful thalith al-ilahiyun, where he said that, of course, he's talking about Socrates, and he said that Socrates is the teacher of Plato, and also all the way to Aristotle. Yeah, yeah, and by that he praised Aristotle, by the way, and this is showing you how Imam al-Ghazali is fair sometimes in his studies, is objective, trying to achieve objective as far as objectivity is concerned. Yeah. So he said that Aristotle is the one that brought about mantiq, which is syllogism, logic in general, and in a way, draw it out in a very clear way, and write about it and classify the types of evidence and muqaddimat and the premises and all this stuff and definition al-had. So all this is said that this is wonderful. Yeah. Mhm. And also Aristotle, what he did, he refuted the Dahriyats, the atheists, because Aristotle himself believed in God. Yeah. So he refuted the Dahrism as well as naturalism or scientism in general. So because himself was, but the problem with Aristotle is that, he couldn't get rid of, all the misgivings. He was, taught by his teachers, Plato, and namely Plato, and before Plato, Socrates. Yeah. Plato also learned it from Socrates without criticizing, yeah. But for Aristotle criticized it and in a way get rid of many of the, the misgivings and the contradictions. But yet there is still some problems, with Aristotle metaphysics. Yeah. So Imam Ghazali also took from Aristotle and tried to do something about it. Yeah. So here is talking وَتَكْفِيرُ شِيعَتِهِمْ subhanallah. But the issue here is that Imam Ghazali said that, all these, contradictions and misgivings can amount to kufr, can amount to kufr, not only by Aristotle, but by the followers of Aristotle, you know, the disciples of Aristotle, the likes of Ibn Sina, I'm sorry, the likes of Ibn Sina and al-Farabi. Yeah, so that is to say that Imam al-Ghazali saw Ibn Sina and Farabi at a time, because Ibn Sina and Farabi both are the ones that translated Aristotle transcripts and manuscripts into Arabic. And they were so fascinated by, with Aristotle philosophy in general, including even metaphysics, where the problem lies. Yeah. So Imam al-Ghazali pinned this out and said that even the disciple can be treated as so, as long as they believe in the philosophy, uh, I mean, drawn by Aristotle. So they are disciples of Aristotle. Instead of them criticizing the contradictions and misgivings and, and the problematic, theology that is ingrained in it as far as metaphysics is concerned, instead of criticizing it, they took it as it is and believing such. So Ghazali had a problem with that too. But for Imam al-Ghazali, on the contrary, he was not really, fazed by that at all. So he delved into it and try to criticize and come with something new, something solid, a metaphysic that is, solid. But how do you do that? You don't just go, oversimplify and overgeneralize. What you do is that you do your homework, you do your research, you categorize the statements, and then you criticize. You categorize, you describe, you evaluate, and you analyze, you evaluate, and probably you judge. This is what Imam Ghazali did. He did not really jump into criticizing and refuting blindly. Yeah. So dividing, okay. So we are still refreshing our mind. We're still putting things into perspective. So next time we start right away with the Batinites, because if we don't put things into perspective after a long time, then it will be very difficult for us to adapt to length. So Imam al-Ghazali, therefore, as far as the philosophy of Aristotle is concerned, especially this related to metaphysics, Imam al-Ghazali said that there is a part where they can be treated as kuffar, and there is part that they can be treated as mubtadi'in, yes, innovators. Yeah. There is part that can be, simply we cannot deny. It is there. It's something that you have to take because it is a priori knowledge. So he will start with the a priori knowledge, then talk about the part in which it should be treated as kufar, or that is considered as kufr, and the part that is considered as tabdi'. But mostly he will not dwell on the part that is considered as tabdi', because he himself said that the details, I talked about it in detail in my book, Tahafut al-Falasifa. So in Tahafut al-Falasifa, the categorization of the metaphysics of the philosopher, or the metaphysics of the philosopher, is more elaborate, is more in detail than here. Because here, actually, the book is not meant to go in detail to that. Rather, the book is trying to highlight the path of Imam al-Ghazali to truth. Yeah. So it's not a book of refutation or criticism of, the metaphysics of the philosopher. That it is rather a book of Imam al-Ghazali, telling you this is my path and this is how I come to truth. Yeah, it is more like an autobiography that al-Munqidh min al-Dalal. Okay, so let's move on. So Imam al-Ghazali now said that, as far as uh, the disciplines uh, found in the philosophy uh, are concerned, they can be in a way categorized into six main disciplines. So if you read the book of the philosophers and the sciences, you will come to realize that there are six disciplines in it. So mathematics, as we said before, logic, and what, and science, and you have metaphysics, you have politics, and then you have ethics. And so for Riyadiyat, to refresh our mind for mathematics, what could be said in mathematics is that Imam al-Ghazali, first, we have to bear in mind that Imam al-Ghazali praises mathematics a lot, and he sees mathematics as something that has nothing to do with religion. Religion does not either affirm it nor denies it. So this is what Imam al-Ghazali says, meaning that it is something neutral. It's not something that uh, is loaded with bias. It has nothing to do with religion at all. So Imam al-Ghazali here wants to make us understand that we are a mathematics per se is an a priori kind of knowledge. It is a common sense kind of thing, and it has nothing to do with our biases and our social, cultural, religious, and theologies and theological, baggage. Understand? It is neutral. It is out there. It's not something that you can, you know, you can say that it is wrong or right based on solving certain problem with mathematics. You know, judging the logic and the logic, the logical meaning, the logical, uh, path, the logical ways through which the problem is solved can be wrong. But mathematics itself is praiseworthy according to Imam al-Ghazali. Yeah. But Imam al-Ghazali pick on two shortcomings that can come not out of mathematics itself as a common sense, a priori driven kind of discipline, but rather because of those who believe in it. Yeah, those who read it. In as much, especially as far as Muslims are concerned, because at a time, philosophy was there, mathematics, people could have access because some of the books are translated and easily. Some of the people could have access to the sources, and therefore, mathematics makes sense to everyone. So, Imam al-Ghazali said that the first shortcoming uh, goes to those who read mathematics, see the perfection in it, because mathematics is almost perfect. It's either wrong or right. There is no wrong and right in mathematics. There is no gray kind of the gray area in mathematics. Mathematics is either you're wrong or not. That's it. It's logic. It's logical driven. That's it. So if you look at it, mathematics is perfect. Even geometry. The lines and all this stuff. Very perfect. So Imam Ghazali was saying, people may be driven away. They may be taken aback and be amazed by the perfection that they find in mathematics. Thinking, not only that mathematics, but thinking that those who are doing mathematics are, are perfect in every single discipline. If the mathematics is perfect, therefore the metaphysics or the politics or whatever also should be perfect. So Imam al-Ghazali, had a problem with this. Not with mathematics, as many people may think. No, Imam al-Ghazali, on the contrary, Imam al-Ghazali praised mathematics, and that's something good that we need it, and that we can't live without it. So he talked about arithmetic and geometry, and and he praises all this. That he has problem with these shortcomings that may come from the people, the Muslims, many Muslims that read it, and we can see it happening nowadays. So many people were so obsessed with mathematics and all this stuff, and all these disciplines that come from the West, and therefore many Muslims got away because of this, and they become atheists, even denying statements from the Quran and so on and so forth, because they were so obsessed. They could see the perfection to the extent that they think that whatever that comes from these people should be fine. This is a problem. If they are developed in technology, and therefore they should be, if they are right in technology and making things working, they should be perfect when it comes to atheism. In order for you to be developed, you have to relinquish religion, which is so silly. So this is what Imam al-Ghazali wanted to bring home, to make people understand that this is not the case. So being wonderful in mathematics and having mathematics perfect, because this is common sense. Mathematics common sense, has nothing to do with people. It's the common sense, a priori knowledge. It has to do with logic. So as long the logic is there, it's right. But if the logic is not there, it's not right. It's like that. So Imam al-Ghazali, so he highlighted here that here. So being good at fiqh does not necessarily mean that you're good at tafsir, and being good at medicine does not necessarily mean that, and this is what we see today. People are obsessed with, for example, medical doctors, and they see how intelligent they are. And when they come, and sometimes they portray themselves as scholars, in social media, and even giving fatwas, talking about religious stuff, talking about issues related to religion. And people are amazed by them. Why? Because their background they have like a medical background. Oh, they must be very smart. So whatever they say must be true. This is what Imam Ghazali said, no, look at here. This is, you may be so good at mathematics or medicine, whatever, or science. Yeah, you may be very shallow. Imam Ghazali did not even say shallow. That's say stupid. So homework is stupidity. In other disciplines, this is how it is. Being in engineering and being very perfect in engineering does not necessarily mean that you should give fatwas in issues related to religions, or related to the existence of God, or related to philosophy. This is a complete different discipline. So he's reiterating the statement that Riyadiyat, meaning mathematics, is a priori. But talking about metaphysics is imaginative, is assumptive, is based on assumption. You understand? Mathematics is a priori, is common sense, but ilahiyat, which is metaphysics, or theology, is all based on ontology, is all based on what? On assumptions. So these are not the same discipline. So many people wouldn't understand that. They wouldn't be able to make the difference between the two. So we have a priori common sense knowledge, which is logically driven, whatever, and you have a discipline that has like a gray kind of area. It can be wrong or not, not wrong. And also you can have a gray area as well. That's the problem. So which is more based on assumptions and hypotheses and all this stuff. So ilahiyat is sometimes can be hypothetical, it can be theological. So you cannot pinpoint and say that, wow, metaphysics also is perfect as mathematics, just because mathematicians are those who are also talking about metaphysics. So Aristotle mathematics is wonderful. His logic is wonderful. It does not mean that his metaphysics also must be must be wonderful. No, So this is the misgiving Imam al-Ghazali want to set right, So he's talking about that, talking about someone who is an expert in gold, for example, is different from someone who does not have that experience, and someone who is not expert, while dust, while gold lies in dust, gold really lies in dust, in earth, So it does not mean that it does not mean that gold does not have a value, no, at all. So you just take the dust from it, and the value is there. Understand? So Imam Ghazali wants to say that you need an expert to tell you, and about a certain discipline. So in a way, Imam Ghazali is trying to say that this is why so many people say that Imam Ghazali in a way prohibited philosophy, which is really to me not understanding Imam Ghazali perfectly. This is actually being a way oversimplifying, to say the least, because Imam al-Ghazali here, he does not say don't read philosophy. That in order for you to read philosophy, you have to make sure that you are loaded, intellectually. You have to make sure you can criticize. You can reach, you have to reach the level where you oversee philosophy, as Imam al-Ghazali did. So you have to be an expert, in philosophy in order to read philosophy. Not everyone can jump in and read philosophy, as far as Muslim society is concerned. So it is our duty to protect, the people, the grassroots, the people who are not expert, the non-expert people, the lay people, if I may put it that way. So it is upon Muslim scholars and also the rulers to protect the people from the misgivings and the contradiction, the confusion coming from other philosophers. Yeah. This is how it is. This is not limiting creativity and limiting critical thinking as people perceived it. It is here for you to see. Imam Ghazali is not saying do not learn philosophy. On the contrary, Imam Ghazali praises some part of philosophy. That praising, that categorization is to show you that philosophy is something that you should pursue, but you have to be careful in this area and that area. You have to look into it deeply, and you should not take it, in faith value. You should not take it blindly. You should read. This is bottom line what Ghazali wants to say, and also university nowadays shouldn't be, afraid of introducing philosophy. Why not? Yeah, especially if you have students who understand, Islamic concepts very well, who are very well founded in aqidah, in ilm al-kalam, and logic, and mantiq. This is very important. Mantiq is very important. Logic, syllogism. This is a tradition that is not there anymore. We need to get it back, because it trains us how to think critically, and how to find loopholes in statements that people may take as given, people may take as, oh, true. So, yeah. So Imam Ghazali wanted to say no. And now he said, there is Afa Thani, Afa, the second shortcoming. So the first shortcoming, as you said, the perfection of mathematics may be, I mean, may be very confusing, may be deluding to some people, thinking that that perfection can be brought to any discipline. Yeah. So their mathematics is perfect, so their metaphysics also must be perfect, which is happening nowadays. There's sociology. We look at so many people were amazed by sociology, for example, and the theories. And so they say, wow. And so they become obsessed with Western culture. Even though they're Muslim, they are faced by the Western culture. Why they should be unfazed? They should criticize it. So, in a way. So Al-Alpha Thania, the second shortcoming is a Muslim that that is very I would say passionate about Islam. He says Sadiqan lil Islam, you know, passionate but stupid, but jahil, ignorant, a passionate ignorant. So what does it mean by that? He thinks that you defend Islam by just denying everything that comes from others. So this is the problem. You don't just, and this shows clearly that Imam Ghazali was not really refuting everything that has to do with philosophy. He was just trying to protect the lay people uh, who may be really obsessed with Western other sciences and think that, you know, other disciplines, as far as philosophers are concerned, are also perfect as mathematics and logic and all this stuff. So this is what Imam Ghazali just wanted to, in a way, emphasize. Not telling people to, not to study philosophy. On the contrary. So here you can see that Afathania is passionate, a Muslim that is passionate about Islam, but the problem ignorant, and thinking that everything that comes from philosophy should be pushed back, should be turned away. No, he said no. This is not the case. So, he said, for example, there are certain things that are good in philosophy, and you cannot deny whatever is good. Isn't because it comes from the philosopher that we have to deny. He said no, this is not okay. This is not a good approach. This is not a sound approach. And even he said that this is even against Islam. Yeah. So, and you look at here, this is really enlightening to me. So he said here, okay. وزعم أن ما قالوه على خلاف الشرع فلما قرع ذلك سمع من عرف ذلك بالبرهان القاطع لم يشك في برهانه ولكن اعتقد أن الإسلام مبني على الجهل وإنكار البرهان القاطع فازداد للفلسفة حبا والإسلام بغضا. This is very, very, very enlightening to me. He said that the problem with those passionate Muslim, ignorant, what they do to Islam, they do harm to Islam than doing good. Because by denying something that is common sense, denying something that is a priori, the other side will be looking at you saying that, oh, come on, let's say Muslim passionate. He can be, he can be someone who is, a scholar in a mosque. It doesn't matter, can be a traditionalist or whatever, a Turathi, thinking that by protecting the Torah, you have to push everything back. He said that by pushing everything back, a Muslim that is a liberal outside there, believing in Western science and whatever, will just laugh at you. On the contrary, he will hold firm to philosophy. See that, look at his argument. His argument is very shallow, It's because it comes from, uh, certain people that you don't take it. Yeah. Yeah. You are refuting what is common sense just because it comes from certain people. So do you understand what I mean? Let's say in our society now, we cannot deny the fact that we have Muslims that are liberal in their thinking. They tend to be more clinging to the Western way of doing things, especially Western intellectual culture. They're into it and they believe in it. And he wants to say the reason why these people are holding onto Western epistemology, is because of one thing. It's because that some Muslims, sometimes who are considered to be traditional Turathi scholars, are denying common sense, things that are very a priori, that are fact, something that you can't deny. So if you deny something that can't deny, just because you're ignorant, because you don't know mathematics, you don't know, probably you're not an expert, for example, in logic, and you deny things that shouldn't be denied. So look at the opposite, the other side, the liberal Muslim who studied mathematics and very eloquent and in mathematics, very good at logic and all this stuff. So when you are making your argument, they're just laughing at you, and this way they are holding tight to Western values as far as knowledge is concerned. So by that, you're pushing them to the Western camp. This is what we are doing literally. Some of the traditional Turathi don't know. And this is what Imam al-Ghazali is emphasizing. Subhanallah. This is very deep, And here, not only here, he said, وَلَقَدْ عَظُمَ عَلَى الدِّينِ جِنَايَةُ مَنْ ظَنَّ أَنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ يُنْصَرُ بِإِنْكَارِ هَذِهِ الْعُلُومِ. Wow. Not only this, he said that the sin that you commit by denying sciences, just thinking that you are in a way this way you are helping Islam. So your sin is very is a very what azuma, is a great sin. Imam Ghazali says is a great sin, thinking that you are helping Islam just by denying facts, by denying scientific facts and mathematical facts and logical common sense a priori kind of thing, knowledge. So for Imam Ghazali, not only are you wrong or not, but you are accumulating sin, great sins for that matter. Subhanallah. I don't know. I just don't know. I think those who are criticizing Imam al-Ghazali and taking Imam al-Ghazali as a what? As a figure, as an intellectual figure who denies philosophy, in order not to have Department of Philosophies in the university, I'm sorry, they're totally wrong. Imam Ghazali is saying the otherwise. Imam Ghazali is saying totally otherwise. If something is a priori knowledge, you can't deny it. It's not something, it has nothing to do with affirmation or negation. It is there, it is a fact, it's a common sense. You have to accept it. Not only that, Imam al-Ghazali bring a hadith just to reiterate, his point. And yes, so he brought the hadith just to show you that a priori factual, something that is fact or factual cannot be denied. It is there. It is common sense. It is out there. It is burhani. He called it burhani. What does burhani mean? It is a common sense. It is a priori. It is a fact that cannot be denied. This is what when something is burhani, it's something that cannot be refuted. It is out there, it is plain, it is common sense, and you have to take it. You can't but take it. Even this is Islamic in Imam al-Ghazali's view. Taking it as a matter of fact is Islamic. And doing otherwise is sinning. When you deny a fact, you are sinning, according to Imam al-Ghazali. You're denying like scientific facts, you are committing a sin. Because by this, you are in a way, indirectly, also denying the fact that the Islam is also telling you to accept facts. Absolutely. If you read Quran and look at the arguments that are made sometimes, foolishing those who deny the existence of God, it shows directly that, wow, they don't believe in God not because they don't believe, for example, in Quran and Muhammad and all this stuff, but they have problem with common sense driven kind of knowledge. Have they looked into common sense driven kind of knowledge, they couldn't have been believed in God. It's common sense. And even Imam Ghazali criticized now he's going to talk about mantiq, of course, logic. He said that the problem with the philosophers and such as Aristotle, his logic is perfect. His logic, he said that is wonderful. This is, by the way, his logic. And he also said that logic has nothing to do, it's not something that we affirm or deny. It is a priori. It is common sense. Logic is common sense. It's either the statement is true or not true. That's it. Why it is not true? Because there are certain conditions that are not included in it. That's it. So he said that المنطقيات. He said فلا يتعلق شيء منها بالدين نفيا أو إثباتا بل هي النظر في طرق الأدلة والمقاييس وشروط مقدمات البرهان. That's it. It is what it is the investigation to, what is logic, what is syllogism. It is the science or the investigation of the turuq al-adilla, the reasoning methods, and the reasoning methods and the methods of the evidence that you brought in, wal maqayis, and the methods of reasoning, وشروط مقدمات البرهان, and also the conditions set for the premises to reach the burhan, the common sense. So in order to reach the burhan, you need muqaddimat, you need premises, premise 1, premise 2, and these premises, have condition. You have to fulfill certain conditions in order for these premises to be sound. Because if the premises are not sound, therefore the results, or the conclusions, also will be unsound. So Imam Ghazali is saying here that if this is he praises mantiq, and he said بل هو من جنس ما ذكره المتكلمون وأهل النظر في الأدلة. متكلمون in a way also incorporated mantiq and syllogism into the kalam method. Understand? Islamic theology, as far as Islamic theology is concerned, Imam Ghazali is telling us mantiq, syllogism, or logic has been incorporated into it to make it work. What is Islamic theology? As he defined it before, it's a method whereby we defend Islam against whatever that is not sound. Okay? For example, if someone say that God does not exist, how do we counter this? We counter it by logic. It's impossible that God does not exist. I have premise, you have your statement, premise one, premise two, and this is the conclusion. Understand? So in a way, Imam al-Ghazali, Raḥmatu'Llāhi alayhi, is telling us that, he's praising mantiq. Okay? He's talking about shurut al-had definition. Also, in order for me to talk about certain things, tasawwur, a concept, you need to conceptualize it and define it. So this is what Imam Ghazali is saying. So concept should be defined, okay? And statements, to know statement, you need to provide burhan. That's it. So for Imam Ghazali, and even he brought here some examples just to clarify the idea. Yeah. التعريفات ومثال كلامهم فيها. For example, the kalam. Really, if you read Islamic theology, it's all full of syllogisms. It's all about, كل إنسان حيوان مثلا. If you say, for example, إذا ثبت أن كل با أن كل با, if you say that every A, if you say that every A is B, therefore, what does it mean? What does it entail? It entails that some B is A. Okay, if you say that anna kulla insanin hayawan, if you say, for example, that every human being is animal, then you have to conclude that some animal, some of the animal is what is human being. So this is logic. This is common sense. This is not something that you can say. It's something that you cannot deny. It's a priori. It is that. Okay. So he praises mantiq, the logic, and but the problem, as we talk, he said that there are two shortcomings actually coming also from mantiq. Yeah. Now, so this is beautiful. Allow me to read it here. No. وأي تعلق لهذا بمهمات الدين حتى يجحد وينكر. So he's saying, okay, if you deny that common sense, what has to do with religion here? There is nothing that had to do with religion here. Whether affirmative or denying. What can you deny here about religion here? Say that there's nothing that has nothing to do with religion here for you to deny. فإذا أنكر لم يحصل من إنكاره عند أهل النظر إلا سوء الاعتقاد في عقل المنكر. He said that whoever denies a statement like that, should be looked at as someone who has problem in his brain. Someone whose pattern of thinking is unsound. Yeah. So this is what we can say. But Imam al-Ghazali said, no, it's not even a thinking problem. It's also a religion problem. بل في دينه الذي يزعم أنه يزعم أنه what أنه موقوف. I'm sorry, seeing that what's happening here. Now, Imam Ghazali said that not only he's got like a thinking problem, it's not only that his thinking is not sound, his pattern of thinking, his logic is bad, but also, his deen, the deen that he said that, he is a follower of. Because this way he is in a way accusing the deen. Naam, lahum naw'un. He said that, yeah, of course, sometimes, you can find in logic some sort of contradiction. And that just contradictions do not really go in line, with the conditions set, by the philosopher themselves, meaning they are contradicting themselves here. Imam al-Ghazali said that sometimes you find them contradicting themselves. So now, if you look at the condition, the logic is perfect. But in application, as far as metaphysics is concerned, you find some contradiction in there. So Imam al-Ghazali say, yeah, I do agree 100% that you shouldn't take everything in faith value. You should verify before you judge. But also, you cannot just, jump in, refuting and denying and whatever that is there in philosophy. So this is bottom line here, as far as logic is concerned. So tabi'iyat, the science, also physics, biology, and chemistry. Imam al-Ghazali find it, the science, as praiseworthy, something that we should, not only we should praise, something that is, yeah. But also we go back to the philosophical underpinnings of science, sometimes thinking that laws, the universal laws, are working mechanically and autonomously. This is where Imam Ghazali has problem, with philosophy in general. So he said, the أن تعلم أن الطبيعة مسخرة لله تعالى لا تعمل بنفسها. He said, yes, yeah, science is good and praiseworthy, but provided that, you believe that nature is what is controlled and run by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that it does not work by itself. It's not something that is mechanical. So he said, so, science is praiseworthy as long as you believe that God is in control. God is the one that running the nature, is the one that, making things happen, running the affairs of the universe. As long as you have this, as long as you believe in that, yeah, there is no problem with science, chemistry, physics. These are, and physics also related to mathematics, and you see. So it's somehow like some of the sciences are a priori knowledge, like physics or something, chemistry. I remember, as I said, oh, these are praiseworthy. This is not something that you can even argue about, and it has nothing to do with religion. So amma al-ilahiyya. So coming to the ilahiyya, this is where Imam al-Ghazali has problem with. So the ilahiyyat, he said that this is where the confusions and the shortcomings come from, the problems come from. But Imam al-Ghazali, of course, here said that we cannot. He categorized the problems into, of course, he said that they have problem in 20 statements, okay. 3 statements, it is where 3 statements can be treated as kufr, but the rest 17 statements cannot be treated as kufr, but rather as innovation in religion, as bid'ah. Yeah. So you have 20 issues that are problematic in general. Only 3 are treated as kufr, and the 17 as bid'ah. Correct? Of course, Imam al-Ghazali here is going to mention only the 3 that are treated as kufr. But if you want more elaboration on the issues where they were treated as mubtadi'ah, then you have to go and read Tahafut al-Falasifa. Tahafut al-Falasifa is more uh, like an elaboration, exposition of whatever it has to do with the philosophers and the problems and the statements related to the metaphysics and all this stuff. So if you want to know more about the issues where they are treated as Muqtadi'ah, then of course you have to read that book. So what are the three things that Imam al-Ghazali treat them as, kuffar for? Number one is this statement, the statement that say that al-ajsad la tuhshar. What does it mean? That bodies, our bodies, are not resurrected. They will not be resurrected. Meaning that reward and punishment are only attributed to our souls. So meaning that rewards and punishments are spiritual. They are not physical. This is what, meaning in the day of judgment, we will be rewarded, our soul will be rewarded, and punishments will be inflicted upon our souls only. Not bodies. Bodies will not be there. Of course, this is a clear, a clear denial of, one important tenet as far as Islamic Aqidah is concerned, because we believe that both body and soul will be resurrected, and that the reward is what directed to both, and also iqab, which is punishment, is inflicted upon both. Otherwise, what's the point? So this is a clear, a denial of what is there in the Quran and what is there in the Hadith. So that's why Imam Ghazali said that clearly that this does not really go in line with the Islamic tenet, Islamic Aqidah. وَلَقَدْ صَدَقُوا. Okay, anyhow, this is what Imam Ghazali. وَمِنْ ذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى. So number two statement. This is statement number one. They said that bodies will not be resurrected. Only arwah, our souls, will be rewarded and punished. Only souls, not bodies. So this is statement number one. And this statement is proven wrong. And that's why Imam al-Ghazali said this is equal to kufr, because it denies clearly a very important tenet in Islam, which is al-maut. Islamic eschatology tells us that we are going to die and we are going to be resurrected, in both body and soul. So this is a clear denial of what the Quran says and the Hadith reiterate. So number two, the statement number two, in which the statement in which the philosophers or the metaphysicists can be treated as kuffar is this. Their statement that God only knows what? Only knows universal and does not know particulars. So they say that God does not know universals. God only knows particulars, meaning that God in general know that we are human beings here, but they probably don't know that, we are here right now in an area called Taman Malati, precisely, myself, I'm sitting in Taman Malati, PV6, in such and such room on Zoom and talking about Imam al-Ghazali. So God does not know that. And this is, of course, clearly denial of the omniscience of God. We believe that God is omniscient, Being omniscient, what does it mean? Mean that he knows everything. Absolutely. He knows universals, no particulars. Otherwise, he can claim to be God. Yeah. So this is problematic. Mm. And also, one of the things that, one of the statements, so this is statement number one, number two, number three is the eternity of the universe, of the world. So they believe that the world, you know, is equally eternal, which is problematic. We don't believe that as far as Islam is concerned, the world is not eternal. Okay? The world is also contingent, just like us. It was created from God. This is how we believe. So it is contingent as we are, as we human beings. So saying, treating the world as eternal is problematic. So these are the only three that Imam al-Ghazali, take on the philosophers in general, as far as theology and metaphysics is concerned. Okay. But other details, Imam al-Ghazali said that, can be treated as bid'ah, not really. Yeah. So he's giving an example of one of the bid'ah called here. For example, denying the attributes of God. He said that they deny attributes of God, which is equal to the madhab of al-Mu'tazila. And no one in our tradition treats al-Mu'tazila as kuffar just because they're denying the sifat. The attributes of God. They say that they don't believe that there is a sifa, there's an attribute that is out of God's, essence, the essence of God. Understand? So there is no sifa. So the alim is that. So he knows with his essence. So there is no sifa za'ila. There is no an additional attribute, which goes against the majority of the Muslims. Most as far as Ash'arite, Maturidite, and also other school of thoughts are concerned, Allah has attributes. Okay. So this is also, but Imam Ghazali does not say that, just by denying attributes do not make you kafir, just like the Mu'tazilites. The Mu'tazilites deny the attributes. Of course, they have their own justification for it because they believe that attributes are what? A manifestation of multiplicity of the essence of God, which for them is equal to shirk. Because if we say that Allah is Alim, is Sami, this is like you committing, theological multiplicity, which is, not really a sound argument, as we know. Okay, of course, after that, the politics, Ghazali talk about the politics of the philosophers, that the politics, has to do with the dunya issue, the maslaha. We're talking about politics is all about the maslaha, the interest, the pragmatic aspect of things. الأمور الدنيوية والإيال السلطانية وإنما أخذوها من كتب الله المنزلة. Yeah, he said that most of political values have been taken from previous religions, and therefore, and also from wisdoms of prophets. Therefore, there shouldn't be a problem with the politics. Yeah, this is his time, of course. This is when you read Aristotle and all this stuff. Yeah. It may go in line with, of course, go in line with wisdom, because wisdom is part of what? And the sayings. part of things that people incorporate into their, politics and even ethics, previously. So you read, kindness and caring for your neighbors and all these stuff. So it is also religious. People, as Imam Ghazali said, people must have incorporated it from revelation, from previous prophets. So for their politics is not a problem for Imam Ghazali at that time. But now things are completely different. Now things are completely different. Because Imam Ghazali is talking about this time, how politics were done, and and how politics looked like. It's all about wisdoms and revelations. And people used to quote, revelation for issues related to politics. So there is no problem with that. Yeah. But nowadays, of course, no, politics are replete with, ideologies. You're talking about Marxism, capitalism, you're talking about democracy itself is a concept that is problematic. You're talking about liberalism. So all these are political concepts. And to the core of all this, you have Machiavellism and Darwinism that are running the show, the interest-based kind of way of doing politics, the hypocritical way of doing politics. So now things are completely different. So now also politics need to be criticized. Uh, it's not like Imam Ghazali's time. He said that no, politics cannot be criticized because most of the statements related to politics, in his time, he believed came from previous revelations. Yeah, and also seeing that politics is a matter of dunya interests and making sure that but nowadays things are completely different. And you have issues related to nepotism in politics, issues related to corruption, issues related to Darwinism, to Machiavellism, the means, what they say again, al-ghāya tubarrir al-wasīla, and all this stuff. So you know, so all this making politics nowadays suspicious in a way, yeah. And also talk about the ethics, of course. Imam al-Ghazali, the same thing said to the politics. Imam al-Ghazali repeated it in the ethics, of course, yeah, at that time, because mostly all these are taken from previous revelations and incorporated into, yeah. That Imam al-Ghazali said that, okay, we shouldn't be carried away by some, by some statements that are incorporated and become part of the, all these previous revelation statements, to the extent that we think that, wow, they're also true. So he said that we should, in a way, try to take this from this, take the bad from this. He even referred to Ikhwan al-Safa. It seems that Imam Ghazali had a problem with Ikhwan al-Safa. Yeah, he said that, of course, he's going to talk about two shortcomings from him. He said that, yeah, I have, in principle, there's no problem with the ethics in as much as it is taken from previous revelations, all this stuff. But there are two shortcomings that I need to bring home the point. He said, "Afa fi haqq al-qabil wa afa fi haqq al-rad." So, there's a shortcoming related to those who accept the philosophy, the ethics of the philosophers. or the ethics set by the philosophers. He said that one is those who accept it. You have people who are very lay people. Lay people. إذ ظن الطائفة من الضعفاء أن ذلك الكلام إذا كان مدونا في كتبهم وممزوجا بباطلهم ينبغي أن يهجر ولا يذكر بل ينكر على كل من يذكره إذ لم يسمعوه أولا إلا منهم. أوكي. فعظيمة. Yeah. So that those who are refusing it, those who are refuting or refusing to accept it, the only argument about it is that because it is found in their book. So, if you find ethics, any ethics in a book written by a philosopher at a time, because ethics were found in their books, we should refute it. So this is the argument. If you find any ethics in the philosopher's book, so refute it immediately. For Imam al-Ghazali said, this is not a very good argument. And he said, okay, if that is the case, he said that this is look at how he said, فسبق إلى عقولهم الضعيفة أنه باطل. Imam al-Ghazali is in a way describing their way of thinking as da'if, meaning very, very limited, very shallow. Their perception of thinking is very weak, is very shallow to that extent. Just by finding a statement in a book written by someone I don't agree with does not necessarily mean that the statement is not true. And he gave an example. Just because the person who said it is mubtil, is someone who is who is corrupt. If you believe that his belief is corrupt, does not necessarily mean that the statement itself is corrupt, is wrong. كالذي يسمع من النصراني, he said that just like someone who hears a Nasrani, a Christian, saying لا إله إلا الله, if a Christian says this statement, لا إله إلا الله, عيسى رسول الله, لا إله, there is no God but Allah, Isa is the messenger of God. So if you hear that statement, being a Muslim, you shouldn't say, okay, because this is said by Christian, then it's not true. No, it is true. Yeah, la ilaha, there is no God, and Isa is really a messenger of God. Absolutely, he's a messenger of God, whether we like it or not. This statement is true. فَيُنْكِرُهُ وَيَقُولُ. So just like someone who hears that from a Christian, then denies it and say, هذا كلام النصارى. This statement is by Christians, therefore we shouldn't accept it. And do not even take time to contemplate ريثما يتأمل أن النصراني كافر باعتبار هذا القول أو باعتبار إنكار نبوة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. And he failed to pause to think that the Nasrani, the Christian, are we treating them, is he kafir because of this statement, because of La ilaha illallah Isa Rasulullah, or is kafir because he denies the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Which one? Is he kafir because he denies the prophethood of the Prophet, or he is kafir because the statement is incorrect? So, Imam Ghazali said this is a weak and unsound way of reasoning. Absolutely. فإن لم يكن كافرا إلا باعتبار إنكاره ينبغي أن يخالف في غيره ما هو به كافر مما هو حق في نفسه وإن كان أيضا حقا عنده. وهذه عادة ضعفاء العقول. This is how, you know, people of weak reasoning, of weak minds, reason. This is how they do things. يعرفون الحق بالرجال لا الرجال بالحق. They know truth uh, by people, you know, understand? They know truth through people, not people through truth. These are two different things. Understand? I know Muhammad, therefore, whatever Muhammad, and I know Muhammad, he is my neighbor, he's a good person. Therefore, whatever he says is true. This is not correct. Absolutely. I look at the statement said by Muhammad, then judge. This is how truth is. So, يعرفون الحق بالرجال لا الرجال بالحق. And nowadays people are like that. It's back because Professor A says it, it must be true. No. Huh? It's because student B says it, it must be wrong. No. A student may have a statement that is more sound than what a professor says. Has nothing to do with that. It's true. It's, you know, it's about following a, you know, a certain methodology. If I follow a certain sound method and come to a sound conclusion, and a professor A follows an unsound method and comes to unsound conclusion, then student B is right. Has nothing to do with being professor. It has nothing, truth has nothing to do with titles. It has nothing to do with people. It has to do with truth itself. So you shouldn't say that because the A is Christian, whatever he says is wrong. Huh? So this is a very good very good I would say principle that we should highlight, and we should make students understand of Imam al-Ghazali. This is very enlightening. And these rubbishes, I would say that, I'm sorry to say that, all the arguments made against Imam al-Ghazali as far as philosophy and critical thinking is concerned, this is telling you clearly that Imam al-Ghazali does not care who you are, as long as what you're saying is true. Absolutely. It's all about a priori knowledge, common sense. You know, do you have evidence or not? You know, did you follow certain sound, I mean, methodologies to reach your conclusion or not? It's all about that. But this is what academia is all about. Yes, he said, yeah. وَالْعَاقِلُ يَقْتَدِي بِقَوْلِ أَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He said that, okay, if you are if you are thoughtful enough, you should benefit from the emblem of Imam al-Ghazali, from this Imam Ali radiallahu ta'ala, when he said, لا تعرف الحق بالرجال. Do not pursue haqq, or do not know the truth through men. بل اعرف الحق, know truth, then you will know what the subscribers to it. Understand? You will know those who are telling truth. This is really enlightening. This is wow. So yeah, so he start talking about the rugham, you know, بل ربما يحرص الإنسان. It's almost 11:38. I think that we are running out of time. And I think that this is it. Imam Ghazali is making the point that we shouldn't, you know, just leave truth because certain people say it. Understand? And we shouldn't also accept truth because certain people say it. We should accept it based on evidence and based on what? On logic and a priori knowledge and critically look at it. So this is beautiful. فلا يعاف العسل وإن وجده في محجمة الحجاج. Subhanallah. So he said asal. Asal is honey, right? Mihjama Hajjam is someone who does hijama, hijama acupuncture in general. They have mihjama, that glass. That glass is mihjama. So the place where they put the blood, the bad blood, because they suck the blood, they put like a glass, a cup. You see a cup. That cup is mihjama, and that cup is meant to suck the bad blood. So if let's say if you find honey in a acupuncture cup, does it mean that it stops to be honey? Huh? It is disgusting. No, it has nothing to do with it. The honey remains honey. Absolutely. Also, the truth, even if you find the truth with a Christian, a kafir, the truth is truth. For example, take a gold. A gold comes from what? Comes from dust, but it is a gold. Gold cannot change. So the same thing, Imam was. This is really beautiful. I like this simile. I like this analogy actually. Very wonderful analogy. فَلَا يُعَافُ الْعَسَلِ. We don't disguise. We don't get disgust uh, with honey. Yes, because we found it in an acupuncture or hijama cup. Absolutely. Yeah. So Imam al-Ghazali is, here he was saying that, of course, we should. He's talking about awam fi zajr al-kafati and mutala'ati kutub ahli al-dalal. He was talking about the books like Ikhwan al-Safa and all this stuff. He said that, of course, Ikhwan al-Safa had seen that Imam al-Ghazali has problem with it, with people, because he believed that there's some sort of dalal, some sort of misconceptions in it. And therefore, reading Imam, the awam, I mean, the lay people should be discouraged from reading, books like Ikhwan al-Safa, because it is it has some misconceptions, sometimes not really straightforward for non-experts to really understand. So therefore, he said that the lay people must be, not only should be, they must be discouraged from reading such books, such as Ikhwan al-Safa, the books that are very, even the books of the philosopher, the ethics of the philosophers incorporated, because all these wisdoms, previous revelations are incorporated into it. And therefore, someone who is non-expert may be carried away by all these, misconceptions, and not pay attention to all the problems that are there. So Imam al-Ghazali, maybe because of this, Imam al-Ghazali, people think that Imam al-Ghazali is, actually prohibiting philosophy. No, Imam al-Ghazali is just saying a layman shouldn't be allowed to read ethics and all this stuff, because they may be easily carried away by some of the misconception, not paying attention to the subtle many issues that are there. And therefore, this is something on the contrary, this is something praiseworthy. So here we stop here, inshallah. Now we can say that we, alhamdulillah, we finished with first category, first group, second group. We talked about the mutakallimin and the philosophers. So everything that has to do with the approach of the philosophers as far as metaphysics is concerned is covered, fully covered now. Now we are targeting the next group, which is the Batinites. I don't think that we will be long there. Then go to the Sufi approach, the approach that Imam al-Ghazali prefers, the approach that Imam al-Ghazali praises, as far as truth is concerned, finding truth is concerned. Of course, we know what kind of truth Imam al-Ghazali is talking about. You want to say that, the kalam and also philosophy at a time. All these disciplines, in as much as they are good, especially the philosophies, the philosophical approach, yes, the mathematics is amazing, the logic is amazing, of course, with few reservations and misconceptions, coming from, coming from the receiver, not really from logic and mathematics per se, but coming from those who receive mathematics and logic, from those who read mathematics, with the possibility of them being carried away by the perfection of this. And also the same thing goes to science. He praises science a lot. He just has problem with the philosophical underpinnings of science, the mechanicalism, the mechanical concept of the world, meaning basically the world working by itself, it's laws set into it, God resting somewhere and letting the world working by itself autonomously, mechanically. So Imam Ghazali has told me that. And also he talked about the politics. He said that there's no problem with the politics at a time. And we said that nowadays it's completely different. Yeah, our politics should be criticized because it's, it inherits, a lot of what philosophical issues, that we don't agree with as Muslims. Of course, we don't agree with Darwinism. We don't agree with Machiavellism. We don't agree with Western liberal democracy. We don't agree with all this. All these are not in line with our Islamic principles. And of course, we can pick and choose what is good and what's not good. Exactly as Imam Ghazali said that we don't agree with the current, political, ideologies. Yeah. And what and the ethics. He talked also about the ethics. He said that their ethics also uh, could be traced back to previous revelations. The problem is that so many issues and confusion, contradictions, consumptions have been incorporated into their ethics, and therefore should be criticized, and therefore the lay people should be discouraged from reading the ethics and the philosophy in general. Yeah. And one very important point Imam Ghazali made is that truth is not known through people. Truth, people are known by telling truth. Not, this is what we should, this is number one, and that we should pursue truth wherever we can find it. Wherever we find it, it doesn't matter either it comes from Christian or Muslim or whatever. It's all about the dalil, it's all about the evidence, the soundness of the evidence. Yeah, the reasoning, the soundness of the reasoning as well, and all this. So to that, we conclude, inshallah, the first part of Imam al-Ghazali's what reflection on the groups that on the groups of his time pursuing the truth. So the Kalami's approach and the philosophical approach, and now we're going to see the Batinites approach, and then the Sufi approach, and see which one Imam Ghazali we settle down with at the end. And to that, I say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا الصالحات. Now, brother, I think that well, we exceeded the time. Is there any question? Is there any Is there any question, any remark, any observation? So you may please. Okay, so if there is no any question, any remark, so we call it a day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.